Hey, what's up, Soul Warriors, and welcome to this Sunday night Recovery Soul session. Live with me, LC, and I am super excited to bring on my guest tonight, Mr. Eric McCoy. He is the author of a book that I really cannot wait to read because, the title alone hits all my senses, and I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. Pain, failure, and misery are the stepping stones to success. I think that somewhere along the way, me and Eric are somewhere connected because this is how I feel. I feel that it's so true, and I tell you all the time. So see, we're not alone in our ways of thought. And also, Eric is the creator and host of an amazing podcast that I'm so grateful to my on to the highway. No way. Okay, so sorry. Our internet, as y'all know, is a little bit stable and unstable here, so we're going to go through this, though. It's going to work. I know it. I'm going to turn my phone off just to make sure. Do this to me. Don't do this to me, internet. Come on back up. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see us or not, but we're going to go on through and podcast whether the internet holds up or not. I will upload it and we will record it either way. So listen, let's get the housekeeping out of the way real quick in case we only got limited time. So look, y'all, I appreciate everything that you do for the Recovery Soul Food podcast, for me, LC, for just everything we got going on. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, Facebook let me know that you have to turn on your notifications. Just because you follow Recovery Soul Food or Lona Currie or Transgender Mentor, you have to make sure that you turn on your live notifications. So please make sure you do that so that you don't miss any of our live videos, which are every Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday or Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll keep you posted. Remember, Breakthrough Hypnotherapy is giving the Recovery Soul Food audience an amazing free gift of an amazing full free session. So get with Pamela Topjian and Breakthrough Hypnotherapy on Facebook or hypnobreakthrough.com. And don't forget to tell her that Recovery Soul Food sent you. So if you all are ready to get into this Recovery Soul session with Mr. Eric McCoy, you know I'm ready. So let's go. Eric McCoy, welcome to the Recovery Soul Food podcast, man. Sorry about this unstable internet, but you know,
no, good.
It's island life. It's island life. I can't even, you can see behind me. I can't even complain all that much. We're right here on the water. So, but welcome, man. Welcome to the Recovery Soul Food podcast. I'm super grateful to have you here. Like I said, we have a mutual friend, Joe Potosi.
Yeah.
And he told me about you and he told me about your podcast. And I'm really, really grateful. And I really can't wait to get in and read your book. So I want to know a little bit about your story. How in the world did you get to the most amazing book title on earth? So talk to me a little bit about you and all the good stuff.
You know, it's funny you say that because, the title did not come till I was well into the book.
Yeah.
And I thought about, when I was really looking at my life and all the ups and downs in my life, growing up, I battled with, depression. I didn't connect with people. I didn't like people. I completely, felt real disconnected with my parents, and I would probably say I was really a bad kid in a lot of ways, and I was. I was highly rebellious. I was arrested, 4 times before I turned 18.
Wow. Okay.
And went through numerous rehabs throughout my life. I mean, the first rehab I went through was when I was 16 years old, and I always had this feeling, I didn't really know where I was going in life. I had no vision for myself, and really nothing. And I tried colleges. I one day I was like, I'm joining the military. Join the military. But I couldn't go active duty because of my criminal bad. They were doing a lot of cutbacks at that time, so I went to I had to join the reserves, and so I did that, and I was really big into the Grateful Dead. Ran off with the Grateful Dead for many, from 91 to 95.
We passed each other, man. You don't even know. We've passed each other.
and it's funny because I mean, all of my drug years. I mean, I would, they weren't all bad. I mean, there were definitely, we could say, there were definitely some good times in those years when I was running around with the Grateful Dead. I think they actually saved my life, and I kind of thought about that idea too, because which is sort of an ironic, thing, because meth was my drug of choice, and methamphetamine consumed me. It took me over. I mean, I was, IV drug user, slamming over an 8-ball a day. My weight would drop to, 130 pounds. I'm 6'4".
Wow.
And I was, just emaciated, headed towards, death. And then the Grateful Dead would roll in town, and I was able to get off it. I'd take off. I'd stop the meth. Of course, did a lot of hallucinogenic weed and all that type of stuff. But it always gave me that break. I tried, the geographical move to Maryland. I lived in Maryland from 95 to 98. I had kids on both ends of the country. So when I was 17 years old, I had a daughter that was born that later became a son. We could talk about that later.
Awesome.
But in 91, and then and that was here in California. Then when I moved to Maryland in 95, I ended up having a kid out there. So I had a kid on each side of the coast. But the pain, failure, and misery concept. When I looked at my story, the first part of my book's called Pain, Failure, and Misery. So it's broken into 3 parts, and the first one's pain, failure, and misery. And everything about it was painful in a lot of ways. I mean, I look at all of the drug use. In 2001, I was arrested 4 times in 6 months. I was looking at 15 years in prison, and and so this is always where it landed me.
Yeah.
And there was nothing good that came out of it, and all that, and so that pain and that's sort of where I kind of got to after I'd written that part, and I'm thinking like, damn, my life was fucked up. And it's funny because and one of my big passions is really looking at our youth, and our young kids.
Yeah.
And I can even literally remember back in those days where you're invincible, everything.
Yeah.
You feel that the feeling that you get from the drug is going to last forever.
Absolutely.
Methamphetamine, it made me focus, gave me energy, helped me concentrate, more
confidence. Yeah.
And you think that's going to last forever, and you don't really quite grasp that's sort of that, kind of adaptation level theory, right? Adaptation level theory says anytime you do something like a drug for an extended period of time, your body adapts to it to eventually where you no longer get pleasure from it. And that's where I got to, and I mean, 2002, I wasn't getting high anymore. It wasn't fun anymore. Drugs are fun when you choose to do them, but they're no longer fun when you have to do them.
Yes, that's a great point, man. That's a great point. great point. I hear you saying, I mean, so much of your, like I'm having to really internally keep myself in the seat. And I think that this is the greatest thing about doing a podcast like this, is that you get to really connect with people that remind you that you're not the only one. There's so much of your story that mirrors some of the things that I went through, even all the way down to the Grateful Dead. And just that feeling, I see that back there. I do, man. I do.
I burned that.
You did that?
Yeah, I burned it. Yeah.
That's amazing, because that's the thing is, there's so much artistry. I think that we're just scratching the surface of the artistry within the recovery community. Those that are not afraid to reach outside or push their mind or push their consciousness, because I can probably tell about you. Oh, I love that, man. You did that too?
I burned that too, yeah. And then
gosh, man, I love it.
My wife actually painted it. I burned it, and then
that's amazing. That's what I'm saying. Like, there are so many talented people in the recovery community that go so far down and in addiction, and don't realize how worthy they are and what they possess. And I think that if that's a big focus of mine in this whole mission in the world, is that to wake people up and remind them, or even let them know, man, how much amazingness you possess. Like, people just don't know it. We get stuck in our past. And I want to ask you a question, since you are, because I have a passion for youth as well, because we've been there. We've been that youth. We've been in those places. How in the world, Eric, do we get through where no one was able to get through to us, and remind us that, because you remember every time you'd see somebody down and out, you'd say, I'm never going to get to that. I'd never get to that place. Yeah. And yet a few years later, in that second stage of life, when addictions actually take hold, which are your mid-20s, where they actually sink in, that's where we find ourselves. So how do you do that?
I'll tell you, the first thing that we all want to do, and this is one of the greatest failures of our government, is study history, right? We study history, study, what we've tried before, right? Does it work? Did it not work? Okay, so just say no, big failure, right?
Huge.
The fear tactics that were used, that doesn't have much effect, for a lot of people.
Except for shame, except for shaming, you go to shaming yourself. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because, and I've talked about this, I even talked about it a little bit on my podcast, but, the first thing we got to do is we got to intrigue them. We've got to interest them. We got to get them to open their ears, And here's the idea that I have, my podcast, High While Clean. I like to get high, right? If I went in and I talked to a bunch of kids, right? And I started out my presentation with, hey guys, just so you guys all know, I love to get high. People will be like, ears it open.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, but the reality being, and then that'll give you an opportunity to be able to, get into the truth behind it, the stigma of substance abuse, don't get high. Getting high is bad, right?
Yeah.
Getting high was a God-given ability. If you study, again, physiological effects and how drugs work, you don't get high on drugs. Everything you get high on is your chemicals. We possess.
That's so true.
Right?
Yes.
In us.
Yes.
And so that's an important thing, again, to educate. If I want to stay high the rest of my life, clean and sober is the only way it's going to happen. And that to a lot of people is like backwards thinking.
Absolutely.
But it's the truth. I am one of those people that, when I get into drugs, I go full blown. I mean, it is,
no breaks.
Buying it by the quarter pound. I mean, I go big. I go really big, and it consumes me, and I'm killing my brain cells. I mean, again, I teach at a school, like pharmacology and physiological effects, and the dopamine releasing, the dopamine neurons getting killed, the serotonin, the epinephrine, norepinephrine, all the feel good neurotransmitters are getting destroyed. And so again, I want to stay high, I want to stay high. I kind of brought this up, I have these shirts, I have a bunch of shirts, but this one here, everybody's know high as fuck, right? High as fuck.
Yeah.
And if you do it clean though,
I love it, man.
And,
I love it.
And that's part of my, so I mean, when we're dealing with our youth, we've got to get them intrigued. We got to get them to open their ears. We got to get them to listen, and then you got to get them to trust you. That's the working in the substance abuse field, right? And the first step is you got to build rapport.
Yeah, very true.
For anybody to ever open up, for anybody to tell you anything, they got to trust you.
Absolutely.
And this even goes more so with kids.
So true. So true.
So that's kind of my, the other side of it, which even goes a little bit, further, is that, and I talked about this a little bit in my book, but we need to reevaluate some of our laws and stuff too. Reevaluate even Tarasoff, right? The duty to report, duty to warn, duty, type of stuff, because in the substance abuse field, everybody knows this. Everybody knows that they say something that is going to put a concern in the counselor. They're going to call the police. They're going to send you to a mental hospital. So what do? We shut our mouth. We want honesty, but we don't want real honesty.
Absolutely. 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 And, I have dealt with this, and, especially when it comes to our youth. So when my wife and I first got into recovery, our son was just becoming a teenager. And as much as I knew he needed help, I knew that even though we didn't use in front of him, the lifestyle in and of itself created so much stress in him. Doesn't matter that he couldn't put a finger on it. It just meant that he felt the stress. Mom and dad's not home. Where are they? They're leaving different times. The emotions way up. I was an angry human being locked in a body that was a prison to me. And watching my son go through puberty, there was a lot of stuff there that I had not even connected of anger. So there was so much going on, but the not trusting, I was a step parent, so I didn't have any control. My wife was so afraid to reach out for help and get our son counseling and different things, because there's that fear of, what if he gets taken from us? And in new recovery, if you are blessed enough to still have your children, you are so afraid of that being taken because you're desperately trying to be clean. It's not like you don't want to do this. You really want to. But in those early, those really early months, days, weeks, you're so, you're a raw nerve walking around. And, it's things like that happen that you throw your hands up because you haven't created that new subconscious belief system, that new neuroplasticity, the new neurogenesis and all that stuff. We haven't created that yet. And so what you're talking about right now is I think super important, because it's true. We go in already guarded. We want to be better parents, but we don't go in and open up about our children. My wife ended up going into a relapse that lasted 2 years in my first year of recovery. And, all of a sudden it's like, I'm thrown into this situation where I have no choice but to do this, but I didn't know where to trust anyone. And what you're talking about right now, I think, lends to a lot of relapses, a lot of deaths, and a lot of our next generation coming up and being addicted, I think it's super important. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you too. I think we're kind of in the same arena.
It really is emotional to me, to think about. Yeah, without a doubt. And it's super emotional to me to think about our youth, because I've been fighting in the great state of North Carolina for us to just I want laws, and I want treatment centers, and I want people that go out into the community that say, we're here to help. I want you just to stand up to that. I want you to back that up. If you're here to help and you have the services in place, then let's use them. Let's make some changes. And we made a few, but it shouldn't be this hard to try to save other human beings. And I think, you and I talked about a little bit about judgment in a different area of life, but I think it's a big deal. We make rash judgments on things very early. And I think that so much about the blocks we face in the recovery process, families in recovery, some of these youth that they like to call lost youth, comes because there is an ignorant snap judgment to what these people's potential are. Mm-hmm. And that's sad to me. That's the saddest part.
Yeah, even with like federally funded programs,
mm-hmm.
Right? You get federally funded programs, but you got to go and you got to fill out all these documents, these applications. You got to wait to get the approval. How many real, legitimate hardcore drug addicts are going to wait, fill out paperwork and then wait a couple days and then still be pumped to go into rehab? It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
You lose people.
That's right.
And there's just so many things that I think are really screwed up, about our and the other, you look at our educational system. You got all these, you got a lot of parents out there that don't want to talk about sex education in the schools. They don't want to talk about drugs in the schools. Why not? And that's, I don't know how it is out there, but out here in California, it's a big, parents want to remove, speech classes because it's too stressful. We don't want to talk about sex because then they're going to want to have sex. We don't talk about drugs because they're going to want to do drugs. That's crazy. We can educate on sex because the truth being is they're going to have sex anyways, but maybe they'll have safe sex.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
But to me, the even more important part is that we don't put much focus on self-esteem. We don't put much focus on, helping them build the confidence, teaching them where happiness is.
Yeah.
It's not in your relationships and your job and your friends,
not external.
Helping people get to the realization that we can stop caring about what other people think about us, then the bullies won't have as much of an impact.
Absolutely. I can't, how many years, and my addiction just kept getting deeper and deeper every time I searched externally for the happiness that only lives inside, for the hope that is an inside job, and that we have to begin, and I think that I have to hold on to hope and optimism that we are in the process of moving into a new consciousness of, human consciousness, where we're beginning to, because we're talking about these things. Number one, we're talking about things that once were never talked about. And, I know for my own son that, there was a lot going on that he didn't talk about to his friends. He also became very involved in online gaming. So he did not use, drugs the way he saw his parents do that, but he did escape through online gaming. And I saw every layer of addiction as you start to see it when it first begins, then as it gets deeper, then it gets more deep, then it's just like little things, because addiction doesn't usually happen overnight. It grabs you. It's very patient, and it grabs you over time. I was seeing that happen to my son in 2013, 2014. We weren't even talking about online gaming addiction, and I would say, listen, this is the new drug of choice for these young people.
Yeah.
I have a nephew right now that is completely in depth and involved in this. They're escaping their life the way that you and I did through drugs, because we didn't have the games like that. We didn't have anything else to really hit all those things. But so we were able to get into drugs. And like you said, in the beginning, having no vision, no direction, we often use that whole thing. It's like being a ship in the ocean with no captain. And it is, you float to different places. And it really is such a hopeless situation to not have a vision. And I think that the more we talk to our young people about what it means to have a vision for your life, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what's happening for mom and dad, learning how to, because I wanted to educate our son on the dangers of addiction. I wanted to educate him on genetics. I wanted to educate him on, listen, there are going to be some things that maybe you don't get to do. Maybe you're not going to be the guy who gets to drink with his friends on the weekend. You got to just be aware of some of these things, man, because going into it blind is what gets you so fucked up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we're social beings. I mean, that's the reality, and I think it's also one of the reasons suicide's so high within our youth, because, because of the video games. They sit in a corner somewhere.
So true, man.
Stuck in their room playing the games, and they really, I think back like when I was a kid, we were kids. I don't know how old you are, but when I was a kid, I mean, we didn't have the computer, we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phone. You had to, we had to go out, we had to engage with people. We used to actually have to go ask people face to face if they wanted to go on a date. Now you just get online and
We did things like play music, like that guitar behind you. We did things like play music, and we were social, we were together a lot. Man.
Absolutely. Time. And I think it was definitely different times than we see today.
Much different. And I think that if we don't start kind of rethinking our efforts in these areas, it's not that external people are going to stop looking for external happiness. They're going to keep doing it. It may not be heroin in 10 years. It's going to be something else. So I think that's what I think is so special about what guys like yourself, even myself and other people. I love Pamela. Pamela shares about this stuff, but especially like in the recovery community, when we start really sharing about living life from the heart, what that really, really means. Not a cliche to say, but being high while clean, and all of these different paradigms of recovery. These things are important because we're really going to the core of the issue, which is, what are we truly searching for? And what we're truly searching for is peace and some sort of balance, some sort of control, not to be stuck in the pain of our past, the memories of our past. I almost made the same mistake when I started my gender transition, because I had already done a lot of drastic external things to find that peace and happiness. And had it not been for another guy sharing information like this, who has a podcast called Recover Yourself, a good friend of mine, Martin John Garcia, who put me on the spot right during an episode of his podcast, where he said to me, I get why that you present yourself as trans. He said, but don't make that your identity. And when he first said that, I was like, I got pissed. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, what are you talking about? I gotta say this. I gotta be a trans person because we are discriminated against and we deserve a stand. And he said, yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. He said, I'm just saying, make sure that that's not all you're identifying with. And it sent me really spinning, but it spun me down within myself that said, that's right, man. You almost stepped into the same trap.
Yeah, he made a great point. That's a great point.
He made a huge point. He made an amazing point.
I mean, we got to be careful living in labels.
Yes, man. Yes.
And that's, I think, really what it comes down to. It's like, you're a human being. You're a guy.
That's it, man.
I'm a human being, and it's and what's the most important is what's inside.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's the stuff that really should matter more than anything.
Anything.
What is within us? What's inside of me? What am, I want to, if you look at like, how do you define yourself? And when I look at myself, I define myself as, I genuinely care about people. I genuinely today care about myself, which is that was a big transition, from way back in the day. I'm committed to things. I'm very outgoing. If I say I'm going to do it, I do it. So integrity is important with me. Now, I'm not perfect, of course. I'm not perfect because I'm not. But but these are the things that are very important to me. Integrity is an ideal. It's something that we can just always work on and do better.
Every day.
And so that that's like when I look at. I mean, I even dispute with even calling ourselves addicts.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Ourselves alcoholics because that's a label. Again, we're labeled. When we label ourselves, we limit ourselves. And if I say I'm an addict, what do addicts do? They use. If I'm an alcoholic, alcoholics, what do? They drink.
That's right.
So if I'm telling myself that over and over and over, now I understand, in the 12-step program why they do it. They, it helps them remember. Sure. I'm a more of a fan of then throw in the recovering alcoholic, recovering addict, because that shows you're actually doing something. You're not just sitting in a label.
So true. So true. And it's prophecy. It's prophecy. Anything that comes after the words I am really needs to be something that you connect with on a deeper level, because when you say I am, I mean, you're really putting it out there like you are, and you say it enough. That's how we create those deep internal belief systems. And so more times than not, what is really standing in the way of us going to that next level in recovery, or that next level in our lives, or whatever we're trying to do to better ourselves, are those deep belief systems that were planted. They're seeds that have been planted for so many years you don't even realize, that was planted in your garden or when. And, I knew coming into, I was addicted for 22 years. I understood and knew that when I came into recovery, this is the first time I was ever in recovery. I've gotten clean and sober before, but I've never been in recovery because I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't understand until 8 years ago that I had to get to the roots, man. I had to get into the roots of what got me spinning, what got me involved so deeply within my emotions, my misery, and those mindsets that gave me no other choice but to cope in that way that I knew how to cope and escape, because I didn't know how to slow down the wheel, if you will, to try to take things apart. I didn't understand about things like victim consciousness. I didn't understand that I could change. I didn't know I had the power to change my own reality. And people think that sounds like magic, but it doesn't. Your perception determines how you feel about your life. And when you look at something and you say, I'm an addict, over and over and over, your brain's associating that with why keep coming to this? Why keep trying at this then? Like,
that's who I am.
That's who I am. And what else cannot be expected of me? We cannot act different than we feel, and we cannot become something different than we believe. That's just what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was I going to say? So anyways, yeah, I am, again, a big advocate of fighting the stigma, obviously
Yeah.
substance abuse. I mean, that's really my big passion. And
Yeah.
There's a lot of beliefs that I have that really go against what a lot of people are comfortable with. I'm a firm believer in whatever works, do it,
Amen. Yeah.
I mean, I've even talked about, with our death rate, overdose death rate is just is unbelievable.
Yep.
That, and I've kind of questioned this. I'm like, maybe we need to go in and teach some of these kids just how to test their dope.
Yeah.
They're going to
I'm
do
with
it.
you.
Do it. Maybe we should help them test it. I had gotten these. I got these. Kind of looking at them. They're these tests here.
Oh wow.
They actually test for fentanyl.
Really?
Yeah. So they're actually tests that you dip into, like, if you're doing heroin or you're doing something, you can load up your syringe, set it aside, and then test the heroin to see if it's got fentanyl in it. Because I want to see people live, at least get a chance.
Right.
I mean, we can say that, yeah, a lot of people are going to die, but a lot of times there's a lot of people out there that it takes them a little longer.
Yeah.
It takes them, and so if they can stay alive long enough, then maybe we'll have an opportunity to get them someday. Get a nab someday.
For sure. Well, people are asking, and I'm interested too. But I'm really with you because had any one of the 4 overdoses that I had, had they been my last, I would never have gotten to this place. Plus, I didn't believe in those days that I would even get here anyway, because again, I believed I was an addict, and what do addicts do? So I guess we've covered, the pain and misery part, and people are asking what are parts 2 and 3 of your book, and how did you get to the writing of it?
So part 2 is a step into the unknown.
That's good.
So it kind of sort of goes into that arena where I'm talking a lot about the confusion, a lot about the uncertainty, the fear, that you have. I mean, I remember being in custody, and it was coming up to my release date, and I was scared to death, and I actually got a place I didn't want to leave. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt safe.
Me too, man.
And then eventually, I got out, and the third part of the book is the stepping stones to success. And so in that part, I actually talk about the learning to think for ourselves, not thinking through the minds of other people. I also really looked at, again, I think one of the biggest failures of like our recovery treatment programs and stuff is there's no intriguing, when we look at, what is the mindset of a substance abuser? They're rebellious. If you bore them to death, they're going to leave. If you don't, if it's nothing exciting, and then, we got all these people out there, with like the old school hardcore 12-step community, that just are like, well, they don't want to go, denial, just, and to me, that kills me, because they're going to go out, they're going to do a bunch of drugs, and then they're going to die, And so we need to figure out ways that what is it that we can actually do to intrigue them,
Absolutely.
Sometimes we got to get down to where they are, see where they're at, and be there with them at that place,
Yeah.
instead of, being up here and talking down on them.
Yeah.
We need to be there and be present. I had so much success with a lot of people, over the years, working with, the hopeless, working with the people that, everybody put aside and said, what, this person's never going to make it. And I've had a lot of success with those people because, and so much of it comes down to communication. How do we talk?
Yes.
I no judgment. I mean, I have no judgment at all.
How can we?
I've mastered the ability to, just
not be shocked.
Anything to me, and you'd never see an expression on my face, and so there would never be judgment. There would, and that's what I always felt that they needed. They needed people. A lot of times they just need an ear. That's it. I mean, I've had a lot of people like telling me stuff, and I have no idea how to respond. I'm thinking like, fuck, I don't even know what to say, But it didn't matter because all they wanted was an ear.
That's it. That's it. Maybe somewhere just to open up and say this one thing, this one secret that they had been keeping, all of their lives. I have a feeling that your son understands what that's like. For somebody like me to understand what's that like. I had many secrets that I never would expose because it made me vulnerable. But to finally get to the place, it was easier for me to say I had been abused. It was easier for me to say that I had, passed out on the streets of New Orleans with my face in strangers' urine. It was easier for me to say all these awful things than it was for me to say I'm trans. Mm-hmm. And, it seems like just being able to openly say that to somebody who then like I have the shock-proof face. You have the shock-proof face. You can't shock me because I'm not judging you. Because when someone is shocked, the brain does this automatic judge and association thing, and you can't help it. You're making a decision in that moment. So when somebody can just talk to you, about mental health education. I see somebody say over here, when somebody explains to you about their mental health, something they've done in an episode, how, just to be able to break that open. And I see it as taking those big Mr. T chains off and just letting them go, just to be able to say that, and how life-changing that can be in that moment, Eric. And we don't have enough of you. And you had an episode with Pax Dickerson that really, really, really affected me deeply, is to hear that now I know 4 people on earth like that. You, me, Pax, Pamela. There's just people on earth, and I think that there should be more of us than there are less of us that bring me you're hungry, bring me you're tired, bring me you're broken.
Yeah, that's how stuff is gonna start to move in the right direction. The more we speak up, the more we talk about it, the more we stop. I mean, all of the anger and the hatred that people have for drug abusers, there's no solution in that. There's no solution in that. I mean, we can sit and we can get pissed off all we want, and nothing's going to change. But if we can start looking at these, I mean, you were touching on the beginning, is that, or earlier you were saying, with skills of drug addicts or people that, and I don't even like use drug addicts, but, drug abusers. Mm-hmm. They have abilities, they have talents, they're smart. There's so many, it's crazy. I've met so many people in recovery that are brilliant people.
Brilliant.
And I think also that the great thing about all of our experience as being in pain, failure, misery in life can actually make us better than all of those people out there that just are have money and live the normal life and everything's good and all that stuff, because there's nothing to work on. Nothing. If I don't have pain, if I don't have uncertainty, if I don't have a lot of failures in my life, in a sense, if I don't have any of those, then everything's perfect, everything's wonderful, and I had nothing to work on.
Absolutely.
Because I was dragged through the depths of hell, right? And I had enough pain in my life that I had to look at things that so many people don't look at. Who sits there and really studies self-esteem? Who sits there and analyzes themselves? You know,
absolutely
evaluates their thinking. Why did I think this way?
Yes.
You know, and yeah, I mean, it was such an amazing, you know, the stepping stones to success, because it really, that's sort of where I kind of came towards the end of the book, and it all kind of clicked, you know, was that all of the things that I put in the, so, you know, because again, the last part of the book really is, you know, a lot of things that I think are of real importance, you know, that we work on. It goes even delves into like the self-esteem concept, but again, you know, thinking for ourselves, not through the minds of other people, viewing the world differently. We don't describe the world we see the world we describe, right?
Yes.
So, you know, how am I seeing the world? I'm in the process right now of writing another book. I don't know a name to it yet, and it's all on perception, right? And how we see things, and you know, the way that we view the world.
Absolutely.
Because I actually start out the book with a very intense LSD experience, but it's for a purpose. It actually it sort of expands upon that idea of illusions, delusions, and things like that, right? But I get into this thing, and I was thinking about it, that, you know, like, we see people homeless on the street, right? Or we see, you know, these drug addicts and stuff, right? And all of a sudden we just look down upon these people, you know, but you don't know their story.
Exactly.
You know? And I sort of create a story for a guy that I sort of, you know, but, you know, really kind of, you know, it's a guy that comes home from work and finds his wife dead, you know, on the shot to, you know, or stabbed, you know, murdered. He like turns around to call the police. He trips on a thing, falls and hits his head. I gotta create this whole story. He hits his head, and when he's kind of coming to, the police were there. He was very delusional, and all he said was "killed her," right? And so like, you know, so the investigation, they're looking at him. It's got to be him. They go talk to his work, right? Because they're talking to his work. They're like going, "Oh my God, we can't have this guy working here." So then he gets fired, right? And you know, so you know, his wife's dead. He gets fired. They never file charges because they don't ever have the proof that he actually did it, which he didn't, because it was kind of, you know, there was somebody that came in and killed. But because he lost his job, he ends up losing his house, and now he's homeless on the street, you know. And so, you know, it's just like this you know, like the human mind always wants to create, you know, these images of people. If, you know, we look down upon certain people, you know, if you're like lower class than me, you know, you got the upper class that, you know, are the real wealthy type people. In some cases, not everybody, but in some cases, you know, that just, you know, are, you know, just get everything through money, you know, and it's, you know, and don't work for stuff. And that's another thing with me that and I grew up in, we didn't grow up poor, trust me. Like in my family, we definitely lived very well. My dad made a lot of money, you know, I mean, and so, but I never wanted any of that. It was really, you know, I was really the opposite of everybody within my family. I didn't care about materialistic things at all, you know. I mean, when I was running around with the Grateful Dead, you know, I mean, I'd leave broke, get in my car, we'd be panhandling at gas stations, you know, to get up to the next show. I did not, you know, I mean, everything always seemed to pan out, but you know, it was in a sense very a freeing experience during those times, you know, running to the hippie communes, the Shasta Mountains. One of my favorite places was Cougar Hot Springs up in Oregon, right outside Eugene, and like a hippie commune out there. And you know, and it was definitely an experience. Not a lot of people, not everybody's had, you know, those types of experiences, and but it really was. I think it was, I'm glad, people like ask, if you went back in time and you know all the information you have today, would you do it differently? Probably not.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either, man. I just don't.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things that, obviously that
Sure.
I did some very bad things, which are described in my book. I was during my drug use and, getting money and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I committed an average of 10 residential burglaries a night, a lot of them with the people home,
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily I never got caught. I mean, California has that 3-strike law, and a residential burglary is a strike. And so you get 3 of those, you get a life sentence, So luckily I didn't get caught. But that's the other thing I look at is I did cause a lot of harm to other people, and I don't necessarily say that the things I do today are because of that per se, but it's just another one of those things of helping the community, doing what I can. Everybody talks about like the 9th step or the 12th step, making amends, make direct amends with people. I don't even know most of the houses that they were at. I couldn't even tell you, figuring out a way to make amends to those people would be really difficult, But I do what I can. I mean, that's, and I just really want to, I've had an opportunity to speak to some senators, local senators in California, and a lot about some of this stuff, about our educational system and doing this types of stuff. But you know what? I always get hit roadblocks. Because they're not taking this stuff into schools. They're not going to do that. And I don't know exactly. I mean, if we can just keep doing what we're doing and people can just keep dying. I mean, that's right.
That's the bottom line.
If that's what they want,
that's the bottom line.
But
same thing. Yeah. I said the same thing to our U.S. Attorney General a few years ago at the peak of the opioid crisis, is that if we don't create some ways to start really focusing in on recovery as a family unit, meaning if mom and dad, or mom and dad, or however your family unfolds, if you've got parents that are in recovery and you've got a child here, in there, even if they're both doing separate recovery, we're not paying attention to the child. We think if mom and dad get clean, everything's okay for, the one in the middle, but it's not. We're not. We understand that so much of the way we run our life today is because of that 0 to 7, year age, and that's where so many of those systems and programs and ways that we are to be are born in that. And if we don't do that, we're just going to be looking at our next generation of people that are addicted, that are externally seeking relief for internal pain and misery. So we got all of this money now that's supposed to be coming to each state. Let's allot some of that to families in recovery. Let's like housing programs and different programs that set people up. But you're right. There's this huge push to talk about it, and let's just rouge out that we want to do some stuff, but we can't get too serious with it, because then our hand will be forced, and we are going to have to spend this money on these people that internally, secretly, we don't really think are worth it. That's why it's going to be up to us.
Yeah, and the other problem, you look at Congress, for instance. That Congress has identified alcoholism as a disease, not drug addiction, though. Drug addiction is not a disease according to Congress, right? And which would be interesting if they made it that way, because they would basically be saying that for you to have that disease now, you have to have committed a crime to acquire that disease. To do heroin to do it, which is illegal. Yeah. So, but that's the reality behind it still. I mean, Congress will not acknowledge drug addiction as a disease. Now the American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association have, which is why insurance companies pay now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, our federal government's a disaster, you know.
Well, I think they're not going to be able to silence those of us that, in my opinion, have been so blessed to have gone through some of this stuff. That's why I just, again, I feel like we have a responsibility that we have come through the depths of hell into a new consciousness, a new perception of life. We're learning how to truly live life once and for all, for real, in a way that I think that we were designed to live it. And I think that it's going to take us continuing to speak up, to reach as many people as we can, to write books and to keep speaking, because it, I mean, it systematically, it has taken many years and lots of hard work and many lives lost in this country since its beginning to change things for humanity,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
the you know, all the money that we put towards reduced supply, DEA, you know, all this crap, right? I can go online, I can buy heroin, I can buy meth, I can buy coke, I can buy anything I want. I can buy it online, I can have it shipped right to my house. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how well is that reducing supply working? You know, if I can
Absolutely.
do that, I could probably go right up the street and I could find it. You know, me
Absolutely.
being an ex-drug user, I can find it quickly.
Absolutely.
Any substance, you know. So the reduce, you know, and the federal government, you know, even the newspapers, they blast, oh, we caught, you know, 100 pounds of heroin, you know, the DEA, great. You know what? That does nothing. You know, the amount of, it's not hurting the mafia, the Mexican mafia. It's not hurting, you know, any of these, because I was reading some study on this. For you to financially hurt them, you have to take about 80% of what they bring in this country. We get about 15, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so we need to take a lot more money and we need to put to reduce demand.
Absolutely.
Because if we stop
That's the
buying it,
answer.
they go out of business. You know,
Absolutely.
we need to start putting safe houses. I don't know if you ever studied in Canada, they have safe houses, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so,
Absolutely.
you know, we need to look at this idea. You know, we need to, even look at the legalizing drugs in some aspects, because, you know, there's a lot of really bad things that are not a result of the drugs itself, but the legality behind all the murders, all the crime,
Absolutely.
a lot of a lot of these things, and that's just one more thing that just creates more problems. You know, that we
Absolutely.
need to, yeah, we need to look at harm reduction. You know, harm reduction. Harm reduction is obviously within the name. It's not about eliminating harm, because if
Yeah.
obviously people are doing drugs, they're obviously harming themselves. But you know, we're working to do what we can. I love that idea of what Canada did, right? Because Canada had these safe houses, and so you could go in there, you could do your heroin. They would supply needles, they wouldn't supply the drug.
Yeah.
And if somebody went into an overdose, obviously somebody was there to help pull them out. But what they found to be the most important was that they had numerous people that would come in, and then one day all of a sudden they'd say, I want to get off this, I don't want to do this anymore. And they'd say, come with me, right? We've got a place for you.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the thing about a drug abuser, unless you catch them at the right moment, you're not going to get them.
Absolutely.
I relapsed,
Absolutely.
I relapsed in 2013, right? I had 11 years clean and sober, relapsed in 2013. And I went on a 6-month run. It was, and I have a chapter on there on this too, but it was really interesting, because at that point in time, 11 years, I'd been counselor, program director, executive director, clinical director. I own programs, right? All of these things, and people go like, how the hell would you relapse, And I lost my passion is really what it came down to. I really lost my passion. And then certain things happened, financial, you know, and there was kind of a whole story behind that. But so I went on a 6-month run, and I'm lucky I made it. I'm lucky I survived it because and there was I kind of think back on making the decision to go back to rehab. I mean, it was not an easy decision, and I somehow did that. Somehow made the decision, right, to get there. I'm, you know, slamming a bunch of meth as I'm driving there, and you know, I mean, I was jacked up, you know, but you know, I get back in there, and you know, originally I thought, like everybody always says, oh my God, you gave everything up, you lost everything, you know, and I thought that at first too, but after, you know, a period of time getting out of the rehab, I realized that that's bullshit. You know, I didn't lose anything. I lost nothing. I lost days or whatever, but I never lost the knowledge I had, the experiences I had, you know, all of this, the information that I'd collected over those 11 years, you know, I didn't lose any of those things. And I turned that actually into something very powerful because, you know, it was, and I can honestly say, this really, really showed me how powerful meth is. Okay. You know, I could relate it to the devil, temptation, you know, whatever kind of thing. But I talk about in my book, is I try to really paint a very clear picture on the power of drug addiction, of meth for me, you know, real power, for all the people that don't really understand it, you know. And I kind of look at it a little physiologically and stuff, but I refer to myself again in there like as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know, because, you know, I was clean and sober. You know, I give you the shirt off my back. I'd do anything for you. I'd be there to help you. You know, you call me and I'm there, whatever I can do. You know, that's the way I was sober. I put that meth in my body, and it was like that potion that Dr. Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde, you know? And I almost instantaneously, I'd steal from you, rob from you, lie from you, didn't give a fuck about you.
That's the truth.
I would do nothing for you, you know? And that's not me. And that's the thing about it. And that's where it's really trying to, you know, to try to get people to grasp that idea, you know?
Yeah.
I literally become somebody else. It's not me.
Yes.
And that time really gave me that because that was the first time in my life. I mean, you're talking about 11 years clean and then relapsing, you know?
Yeah.
Anytime before I'd gotten clean that time, maybe 6 months.
Right.
Most probably. And so I had the real blatant big picture. I mean, drastic, you know, that was powerful for me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I literally, and that's what I thought about this later, and it was just like, damn, that was really blatant, you know?
Yes.
I mean, this day, and then I do it, and then it's almost instantaneously, you know?
Yes.
I'm like, fuck you, fuck everybody, I'm out.
Yep.
And the cravings just kick in, and my body just, you know, you hear it. They always talk about in the recovery world, you know, that if you relapse, it's like you never stopped. You know.
Yeah.
And I can attest to that. I mean, it went from, you know, I mean, everything came back almost instantaneously. You know, back to residential burglaries. I'm making fake IDs. I mean, it was literally, you know, my life, and I sort of relate. It's like the catch me if you can.
Yeah.
You know, check fraud, credit card fraud. I mean, doing all that stuff, you know. I mean, I had full setups, living in motels and, you know, selling dope. And it was, but that's not me, you know, that's the thing. Like, you know, where did I go? You know, and you're almost kind of, you question that too. You're like, where the hell did I go for that period of time, you know? And, but I was gone, you know? And getting back to getting clean, it was even harder. But this was actually the first time in my life I ever got clean without having to get arrested.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Well, and that's all of that stuff that, you know, that whole 11 years led up to. That you're right, you didn't lose all of that knowledge. And I don't know if you kind of got into that headspace like I did. I'd had 15 years clean of heroin. Not that I was not a program director or in, you know, real recovery. I was just white knuckling, you know, and was on MAT at the time, but I was really doing okay in my life for, you know, it would have been 15 years since I had even touched heroin. And then for that 9-month relapse, you know, I got triggered into a trauma response in a situation, and boom, I was right back. And you're right, like the body keeps that score, because I turned to that, picked up, and it was off and running to the races. But in those 9 months, there was a place in me that was like, dude, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
But I often, and I didn't have to get arrested. I got arrested, but I had already signed up for, you know, to go back to treatment. But it was, you know, it's like what we were talking about before, you know, that was the only time that I fought hard to get into treatment. It was one of those things where I didn't have insurance or money. So I had to wait for that federal program 3 days and then 2 weeks. And it was like, I was so ready to fight for my life at this point that, you know, it was recovery or death for me, because I couldn't do it anymore. And so, you know, going through that process. But that time, had I not gotten that time, I just don't think I could be who I am today. And I wouldn't trade that, even though I did those things, like you said, and I fell right back into it, and I picked back up, and I was at it again, and completely different person.
Right.
But I couldn't be awakened to who I am today without that. Eric, this has just been beyond an amazing conversation to have with you, and I'm grateful to have this new connection with you. And I have a feeling that we could probably go on here for quite a while with this conversation, but I really am grateful that we have such a connection, in that I think that it takes layers to this thing. And I love that you're talking about harm reduction. I love that is that place, the youth and harm reduction and all those things are such your passion. You know, my passion, really, I love all of that, and I'm so grateful for all of that. And I think that's exactly where we need to go. And I want to be a part of that mission, to just help people get closer into that heart space, to get closer into those subconscious. And I think those belief systems, and help those destroy those old belief systems, to really truly know who they are. Because I'm going to tell you, there's not a substance abuser that's not an entrepreneur in this world. They got mad ass skills. They can do whatever they want. They know how to set goals. They know how to have a vision. They know how to make it happen. And I think that it takes each and every one of us, all different kinds, to come together and just make this a better place for all human beings, regardless of what your coping skill is, or where you live, how you live, your color, your gender, your attraction. None of those things matter, man. We cry clear tears. We bleed absolutely the same. All organs. We all have the basic needs. And I'm really grateful to know that there are other people in the world that are pushing for humanity to heal in ways. So thank you, Eric. To make sure that, you know, I've got some of your information in the description, but make sure that people know how they can get in touch with you, where they can find the book, and where to find you next.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is highwallclean.org. High, getting high, wallclean.org. And I wanted to also mention, so I'm connected with a nonprofit organization called Building Beyond Me.
Oh, yes.
If anybody, and I want to throw this out here, if anybody donates $40 to Building Beyond Me, if you actually go to my website, you can actually donate to this cause. I'll actually send you a shirt. And I actually have different shirts. I have this one here, this type of shirt, high as fuck, but do it clean. I got another one say, keep getting high, let's do it clean.
Awesome.
And the other one, let's get high.
Nice. Nice. I love building beyond me. I love building beyond me.
Too. But
great.
yeah, so again, highwallclean.org. My email address is McCoy, so EMCCOY at highwallclean.org. And yeah, please check out my book. And if anybody out there, has a struggle financially or anything like that, shoot me an email and maybe we can work something out. I can get you a book. You can get it on Amazon and all your typical places. It's in all different formats. It's softbound, hardbound. I even did an audio version. And
good.
So Amazon,
that's going to be my jam.
You can actually do it. You hear it on Amazon. It's me. I read the whole thing.
Hey, that's going to be my jam, man. So the next time we meet, I will have read/listened to the book now for sure. But man, thank you. Just thank you for just everything.
I want to say one more thing too. I'm really excited about this too. And I'm looking at this might be coming up. But again, check out my podcast again, High Wall Clean. And again, if you go to my website, all the links are there for the book, the podcast, everything. Paxton Dickerson and I might be starting a show on LA Talk Radio.
Awesome.
So I'm actually going down there Tuesday, so that could actually be really fun.
Oh man, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that.
And so that's it's not fully set in yet, but it's something that we're looking at and it might happen. That'd be really fun.
Yeah.
And, and Paxton and I are very similar, in a lot of ways. We like to get high. We love to get high.
Yes.
I'm looking for the day that I don't have to clarify, but do it clean. I just like to get high,
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I love it. And I'm thankful, so thankful, man, to have this connection with you. And I'm so thankful that you found your passion and what you were born to do in this world. I think that's the most important thing. We're all looking for what we're born to do. I think you are right dead in it, man. I think that's the most genius, authentic line ever. Let's get high, but do it clean. It perks my ears up. It gets me interested, and it's going to change the world. So I'm grateful to have had you here.
Yeah, and I just want to let everybody know too out there that I am very reachable. So if any of you guys ever want to communicate to me, again, shoot me an email, McCoy at highwallclean.org. You can find the link to on my website that can get me to me. If anybody needs any assistance, help, anything that I can do for you, I'm definitely available, always available. And I don't care if you're transgender or straight or gay or whatever. Okay.
Awesome. That's amazing. I look forward to the day too, man, when we don't even have to clarify that. But thank you for clarifying that, as we do live in a world where people are worried. We don't know where to reach out, need to feel safe.
That's the one thing I've never had within me is racism,
Man,
I don't ever, like, I refer to friends, I don't refer to them by their color, it's like, it just never really dawned on me that there's a lot of it out there, and a lot of it's based on fear. I talk about that a lot in the book too, I got a son, born a girl, love him to death,
It's amazing.
So it's just never, you were kind of asking a little bit on like the parenting thing on that, and he actually grew up with my parents, because obviously this was a lot of drug years for me. I would not have been a great parent. And so he actually grew up with my parents, which I was really grateful for. Great. But then when I learned about all this stuff, and he was talking to me about it and things like that, I literally just, that's what I thought. I don't care.
It's awesome.
If that's what helps, if that's what's going to make you feel whole, if that's what's going to make you happy, if that's what's going to help you get high.
That's right.
So
that's right. You gotta be you, man. You gotta be you. We gotta stop living in a world that teaches people, especially children, to hide their uniqueness when our uniqueness is our superpower, or else we would all be the same. How do we press down what has been created within us? Because God knows I spent 22 years trying to suppress, to move away from, to try to be anything else but me, to the point that I woke up praying for death on a daily basis. I couldn't look in mirrors. I didn't like being on camera. I didn't take pictures. I didn't do any of that stuff, and was really convinced and believed that I was never going to have any kind of life. So why be anything but an addict? And so we have far too much trans violence, too much, racist violence in this world, in this country, and it needs to stop. Yeah. It just needs to stop.
And that shows courage. I mean, you got courage. You got, and I know, fear, is definitely fear is the grounding of all of it.
All of it.
Racism is based within fear.
All of it. Yeah.
All of the stuff you went through is based within fear. Fear is the greatest destroyer of happiness.
Everything. Yeah.
And so appreciate what you got. Appreciation, the strongest outbound form of love. It's the idea of giving of everything and asking for nothing. Appreciation. Yes. They said your mind can't be in the state of fear and appreciation at the same time.
That's right.
So it might be the antidote to fear.
That's absolutely right. Oh, Eric McCoy, I'm so glad we ended it right there, because that was the best outline ever. So I'm looking forward to being with you next week on your podcast. I can't wait to get into that with you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for being here. Y'all make sure that you go and check out this book. Check out Eric. Check out the High While Clean podcast, and make sure that you go to Building Beyond Me, an amazing organization, beautiful human beings over there. It's absolutely outstanding. I'm grateful to know that you are affiliated with them as well. Just amazing connection. I'm grateful to know you, man. I'm grateful to know you.
And again, if you donate $40 to it, I'll send you a shirt.
And it's well worth it. It's well worth it. So, Eric, hang out. I want to say a proper goodbye to you. Absolutely. To everybody else, I will see you Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next Sunday night, we're going to have Dr. Marina Costina in the house, and she's going to talk to us about how everything is energy. She's going to tell us about her tragedy to triumph story, how she came to her own awakening through the pain of being at rock bottom. Sometimes rock bottom is the greatest place in the world to be. So until then, you guys, I love you. I'm grateful Eric's been here to say what Eric would say. Keep getting high, but do it clean. I love it. I'll see y'all next time. Until then, bye, guys.